So thank you everyone for being part of this panel discussion. So just very quickly, why we are discussing this topic is in this post-pandemic era, organizations have been really compelled to look at how modern work should function. And there is of course a realization that the traditional borders or perimeters of the office have now disappeared, and the future of the workspace needs to be defined as something that is adaptable, practical, innovative. And so there is a need for CIOs to focus on new ways to support employees who are often collaborating across, whether it's from their bedrooms or from the airports or on the road, across continents, different time zones. So we are seeing that happening. And so this discussion will focus on what are the challenges that organizations are facing in making themselves future ready.
Now, the earlier days proxy will enable you to disable or enable on your laptop. With a local permission, you could disable it, right? And if you have a very stringent official policy, आप घर में जाओ उसको enable, disable कर दो and you can access everything. So your endpoint is becoming vulnerable. And now that's the reason probably we are getting into a new age proxies, cloud proxy solutions, where it is becoming a part and parcel of your endpoint and you can't do anything with that. So wherever you are, at office, at home, at anywhere, the proxy policy will be the same. Right? So these are a few things that are changing.
Yeah, thank you, Atanu. So, Mr. Sharma, I would like to ask you, beyond security, what is the difference that you have noticed in trying to create a modern workplace? Security is, of course, definitely one facet.
Remote connectivity, work from wherever they are, but that was more of work. After pandemic and the current demand is more of collaboration. It's not only work. So people demand that I should be able to carry out my job from wherever I am. I should also be able to collaborate, with folks who are related with that task. Also, I should have a unique and unified experience in terms of when it comes, to sharing the content, sharing the task and activity. So these are some of the area which has emerged after pandemic. Beside that, there has been, that has posed the different challenges in terms of how do I monitor that remote task force or workforce which is working? How do I see that, phone offers a screen time? Do I have an option to, measure that screen time, what employee is, working on that? So these are some of the newer way or the additional thing has emerged after pandemic, and that's the demand. Some of the area is being met, some of the areas is still being considered how to fulfill that.
So Ashish, taking off from that, so is that a concern? How to measure, say, productivity or collaboration in this kind of an environment? Are you seeing some requirements for that kind of a thing?
No, fortunately our company believes in trust. So we have never gone into the monitoring what employees are doing. We are not capturing any screens, what are they doing, how are they doing. We believe if it is being given to the employees, they will perform their job. So fortunately it has not been done in our organization. Just to take on from what Mr. Sharma said, we have tried to do certain things in our organization. So post-pandemic, few things which has become a kind of a new normal. So we are part of a tech sales and we need to design create a new designs every day. So now it's a kind of a daily routine for us that the people can work from home. Earlier we had a design software which was hosted on site. Now we have moved completely onto the cloud. So by virtue of this, we have given an opportunity to our team even if they need to work from home. And this was the one complaint which we were getting from our HR, that the team which is there in retail is pretty young. The young team wants flexibility in work, and you are saying that you need to come to office because you need to create the design. So by virtue of this, at least now they are able to work from home wherever they want to work. Second, we have been able to do something for our blue collar employees as well. So to give a training to the blue collar employee during the pandemic was a bit of challenge. For the white collar employees, we already have LMS systems available, but how to give a training to the blue collar employee? That was a bit of a challenge, which we have enabled using cloud. So these are the two examples which I would like to give, which has changed post-pandemic.
Very interesting. I think very apt examples from learning and development, training, which has changed. And as you mentioned that, this element of trust that has been built up so that you don't require surveillance to figure out whether, so probably you're just measuring outcomes rather than, time spent.
Yes.
Yeah. So Mr. Talia, if you have any experiences to share, on this aspect of how, were there any challenges?
See, in the manufacturing organization, there is.
Can you hold the mic a little bit up? Little bit up.
In the manufacturing organization, there is hardly work from home. It's only for the period of lockdowns. We followed only in the period of lockdowns the work from home. Otherwise, it is. Of course, the IT accounts people, they can work from home, but to maintain the culture, they are not allowed to work from home because we have to address the work power in the plants. Okay. That is one. Another tough part is the measurement of the productivity is more costly than trusting the people.
Right.
Okay. So it was observed that rather than checking whether they are working or not, whether they are producing the result, it is better to trust them and get the work. That is what we followed at that time.
Thank you. Interesting insight. The measurement can be more expensive than, just trusting people. Yeah.
Yeah, their job will exist only if they are producing. Otherwise, it won't.
And I would like to add that
Sure.
productivity is a very subjective term. I don't think any organization today has a very good way of defining what's productivity. I think if an organization is consistently meeting its goals, that organization is productive. It's very difficult. I've been fortunate to work in Microsoft and for Google, both organizations, both great organizations with great technologies, and nobody knows how to measure productivity. It's a very subjective term. I think it differs from organization to organization. It's very subjective.
So, Sujata, I would like to get your perspective on how do you now describe the modern workplace? What are some essential features of the modern workplace? We use this term very often now.
Absolutely. Overused term, I would say. But some of the key things that would be important for both end users as well as an organization is the flexibility as to how they are connecting to the services. And the same experience irrespective of how they are connecting. So for me, these two areas play a very important role, whether they are working from home, working from office, hybrid work, on the go. It's about getting the same experience and still be able to access the same data from any device anywhere, as long as it is trusted or approved by the organization. So that plays a critical role, and with Google or with Google Workspace, what we majorly see is how every data of a user is on the cloud or in the drive or easily accessible from any device. So that is where you are never worried about stickiness with a particular device or, oh, I don't have this device so I cannot get it done. So those aspects are not really there because you are able to access the content from any device. So I think that plays an important role in a modern workplace as such, because you should be able to, you're not dependent on a device or any data, but rather able to get your work done with that flexible
access. That's an
access.
interesting concept, that device independence.
Yes.
So the device does not define what you are able to do. So you should, that's interesting. But so Atanu, would you agree, how far away do you think we are from that ideal scenario?
I think, yeah, Sujata, from Google Workspace, I think that's a good idea. But honestly speaking, on the ground, as a person, as an individual, right, I will have one device or at the most two devices to work with, right? Maybe one official device, one personal device.
Yep.
So ultimately, I'm tied to maybe, in the idealistic world, you can say Microsoft or Google or all those cloud native kind of applications, they are device agnostics, right? They will sync. Apple today synced into 20 devices, right?
True.
So ideally that is possible, but actually on reality, you will ultimately have to depend on the device which you are using. And I would say it's a bit far from reality that we can totally be agnostic to the particular device that a person is using. And again, I'll have to touch upon the security part of it, that if you are device agnostics, your destination is chosen, fine, it's on the cloud and
Yep.
it's synced from any device, that's not a problem. But when you are not specifying the device, let's say I have a policy within the organization that anything on a mobile device, I'll have to have Intune inbuilt into that device. Now, I can access my workplace from anywhere. That's not a problem. But if the Intune is not there, and if my global policy is through Intune, I can only access my workplace, then any device will not work for me.
Absolutely.
Right, so we'll have to play a balance into these things, I would say.
Yeah, it's about org approved devices is what
Yeah,
essentially.
that's where it comes to.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
So,
one question.
yeah, go ahead, Manish.
So, adding a twist here.
Yeah.
Some people said productivity measurement is required, and some people said it is not required trust. Now, gig economy, we all know that there are people who are working from home and working for more than one company. It is a reality now, right? And if we are measuring outcome, fine. So they are still delivering, so great. But if they are working for two companies and both of them are competitors and they are sharing data, since it is can be synced anywhere, can go anywhere, right? How are we handling these? Do we have a plan to handle this? Because this will grow, right? As long as some people keep working from home.
I'll take a step.
One of the ways that we have already started doing for our partner framework is simply give them VDI. Whichever device they can work through, but they will have to come through their specific login ID through a virtual desktop. Virtual desktop can be on Google, can be on Microsoft, wherever it is, but it's specific to your work, right? You cannot even access your own personal device data while you are on that login.
Sure.
It's a virtual kind of platform that you are working on. So that's one of the things that I can think of.
Yep,
That was one
absolutely.
part of the question. The second part is how do you handle these people who are working in two companies? I mean, two parts. One
Sure.
is data, the other is.
So from the data, I agree with one of the ways to do it is locking into a VDI or locking into a particular device so that data never goes out of that device. I absolutely agree to that. But now there are also solutions like Beyond Cop which extend beyond your own network or a particular device where data doesn't really move out even if I'm working on two different companies or two different data environments, because data leakage controls are available at that browser level or at that device level. So even if I access, like let's say, two company information on one device, I'm still not able to take it from one across one profile to another. So those controls are available through Beyond Cop. You can read about them or we can discuss, but it's possible. Now,
Sure.
the second aspect of trust, or how do we even prevent that, I think that's a more situation where it's a mindset of individual where I still want to earn more or work on two companies. Again, it's a time bound aspect where does the person have so many hours in a day and all, but not a very common scenario, but it's more a human aspect of how to
I have a very
Also, probably on a reality side, you can't check your brain, right? So it's there in your head. So if one person is working on two companies, that part you can't control.
yeah.
So I'll give you one example. Actually, I know one person.
Uh-huh.
I will not name the company, but that person works in one company, and for the other company, he has hired another junior resource who's working for him, and this both of them together working for two companies, but the one person is employee for both the companies.
Yeah.
I have a very non-technology advice in this case. So, one of my customer in Microsoft was Samvardhana Motherson Group. I don't know, I guess all of you are aware of that. So, in 2001, the MD's son joined as the new MD of the company. At that time, group's turnover was 150 crores. In next 1 year, he spent time in recruiting the best talent. He spent the entire year recruiting 8-10 really senior managers and all that. And they were given in those days BMW cars, Mercedes, all kind of empowerment to grow the company and run it operationally. Guess what? Anybody can make a wild guess what's the group's turnover today?
50,000 crores?
They are $10 billion plus. Last year they crossed $10 billion plus. So Samvardhana Motherson's story is about hiring the right people, nurturing the right talent. Unfortunately, most of us seek every solution in technology. We spend very little time in hiring the right talent. Like if you are hiring somebody junior to you, you don't even spend 5% of your total productive time in looking for the right candidate. So I think it starts from there. Hiring the best talent, the right talent is more important than all the technology things that you do. People can take screenshots, people can video record, people have data in their memory also. So there is a limit till which technology can stop somebody from playing on all sides. Eventually, hiring the right talent is more important than all the other things that you do.
Yeah, one second, I think Vinod, yeah.
I was interested in the discussion around the productivity measurements and so on, and barring, obviously it's a convoluted ethical issue as well in terms of what you cannot do and all of that. But I was speaking with Microsoft about the Viva and the Insights programs, and I believe there is a wealth of information that an organization can get from where is the work actually happening, who's actually doing work, what are the informal, formal networks, how is work flowing. In terms of that, what have you guys been able to come up with, and how do you see that evolving? Because when we looked at some of the insights data, it's not personalized, so obviously you don't get that idea of, you can't drill down to the last person. But even on aggregate, it gives a very good representation of what is your organizational culture around work. Do people cooperate, or do you have more individual contributors? Is there a product path that is actually going that way, where the metadata around work is actually available to customers?
So there are two viewpoints that product organizations look at in this direction. One is about micromanagement, while you get into a lot of depth into individual user data, and the other one is obviously on more from a wellness standpoint, that is it a healthy environment for a user to even work in. So these are two viewpoints that are actually happening in the market. Discussions around them are in progress on how deep should we even measure. Now from a tool standpoint, yes, there are mechanisms in a way that how much time is being spent on email, or how much time is being spent on meetings. All of these insights are something that are built into all of these new age cloud platforms. So that will help an administrator to in fact get some details around the general usage, time spent, applications used. Yeah. All of those are covered.
So actually I'm for a second forget about when did I log in and when did I log off, and
yep.
any direct or indirect reference to my productivity. I'm more talking about the nature of work, the organization of work, the informal networks. We've learned more from that. For instance, I think as part of the pandemic, everybody figured out that you equipped somebody, but then work wasn't happening because the work was getting done elsewhere in your organization, and you didn't understand that, and that is fine.
True.
Because when you were all in the office, that got hidden. My question is really not about the mechanics of it, and I'm aware that pretty much any system can give me login time and log out time and all of that.
Yeah.
But it's more the networking effects, and who's sending mails to whom, more off, less off. Is there, to your point, is somebody getting burned out because he or she is a critical resource that we never knew about? And that is more where I'm asking, what are the directions in that part?
I think Sujata can chime in, but my experience is that there is a lot of emphasis still on sending and receiving emails. I think there was a study recently that emails will account for less than 3% of our overall work time and everything.
Understand, and I was only referring to that as an indicator of connectedness, and I'm sure with
yep.
every single other platform that you have, or chat, or Teams Meet type of environments. I was just trying to understand that, is there a direction when you're talking about something like workspace, is there a direction around understanding that dynamic in an
app usage? Yes. So the measure is definitely not login, logout, not the time perspective, but more of the usage perspective as to percentage of time that a user spends on something, and the amount of time that is getting into meetings or document collaboration. So those tools are available. So
is that exposed to administrators or company people?
Absolutely,
in that sense?
Only to admins. End users would majorly see more about their time usage, but not the overall usage. But admins, yes.
Yeah. We had a question here.
Yeah, actually, I had a question on the previous discussion we had about the integrity, you can say, or the
Sure.
Dual work mode of the person. And I think after pandemic, that is prominently came out because of the uncertainty of the salaries you get or the job you have.
Yep.
So there is an intent, you can say, from the mainly from the IT side of the people. Okay, IT people, they had a privilege to work from the home, and they had also option to work as a freelancers. So typically, if a junior guy who earns little bit, not like a senior people, so there is a tendency to work on a dual mode. Maybe in the night they work for the international companies or from the projects where they can earn the side-by-side income. Okay, so that is a philosophy. That is, you can say, a fundamental change which happened. So moral policing, that can be one. It's very difficult to do that, and as sir said, that it is something you cannot watch anybody's brain, right? What is going on? So I believe this will go on, but typically by having some applications or monitoring, back-end monitoring, you can say. So that will little bit. I mean, for the company data, yes, that is possible. But if somebody is working on two different machines, you can't really
Never.
make it out. You cannot do that. Even I think Google doesn't have a solution on it.
And hence it's important to hire people and pay attention to whom are you hiring.
Yes.
People spend very little time,
Yeah.
2 interviews, you have 5 years experience here, you understand this, okay, you are hired.
Very true,
spend more time with the
yeah,
people
the
that
face
you
shown in the interview is different than what you get actually.
Exactly. Correct.
Yeah, I think we can't argue in those.
Absolutely, it's an endless discussion.
See, I'll try to put a point here. Probably in the pandemic, we have come to know that these people are working for different organizations. But it was there even earlier also. Okay? We keep on getting the calls from people working in bigger IT companies. If I name, say, IBM or TCS, they keep on calling us, Sir, koi kaam hoga to batayega, hum log karenge usko." So this has been there, it is there. Okay? It's not that in the pandemic it has come up and people started working for different organizations. Only thing we have come to know at that time, in the pandemic, that these people are working for different times. The people working in accounts or finance departments, they work for many other in consultancy. They can give consultancy to different organizations to get the finance from the banks. People dealing with banks, they give their expertise to others also. So it is there. So it is nothing that it is happening now.
Just wanted to add, further on this point. I think, as it is coming out, there is no way that we can do that, the productivity measurement. And if someone is very desperate to work with the two different machines, it's hard to really difficult to identify those. But I personally feel, it is posing a different kind of challenge to the industry, and there will be some evolution, in that direction. That how do I measure that productivity? As of now, there are different type of jobs. Support workforce requires a different kind of measurement. Some given tasks, for example, development, etc., requires a different task. Different measurement. So this definitely a challenge. If support is not given a time, during pandemic, we experienced people were on shopping and responding after 2 hours during the day. So those are the challenges, and I personally feel that it is forcing industry to redefine the culture. That how do I measure rather than going by that 8 hours job or 10 hours job, whether somebody is on the desk or away. So I guess that would emerge as we go along.
It's a very good point actually. The flexi time, which is prominently came out, no punching. Many of the companies, they declare there is no punching required. You come and do your job and go like that. So that is something which is going to future, I believe, at least.
So I think the point that is sort of consensus that has emerged is that more than technology, it's a cultural issue, the new workplace, and to whether we can adapt to it. And of course, it poses new kinds of challenges in terms of just management, thinking, people, getting organized. I think all these issues are now coming up, that because now that we have experienced firsthand. And as some of the panelists in your point, some things were existing. They have just come to light because of the circumstances, or we were not paying too much close attention to it. I think Dinesh ji said, that people in finance and accounts were always moonlighting, and it was existing and everybody knew it. But it's only when it comes to IT that people are, or I think he gave some examples of IT also. So it was there. It was not so prevalent, I guess. Now it's more obvious, and so we retermed it as gig jobs.
Don't hire me as a full-time employee. Hire me as a consultant or retainer to kind of come out of this contractual obligations. So that
But
is
at least
also
he's very
happening.
honest, no?
Yeah, that's what.
So, so a related question to this, I think, and Atanu touched on it in the beginning, the issue about security. I think one of the solutions that was proposed was, use a VDI kind of environment and you separate it. But are there other things, Rajneesh, that we need to think about from a security perspective? Not just a policeman perspective, but in general, in a new workplace, how do you do security? Is there a different paradigm now?
I think it's a function of, like, it's a multi-layered thing. Security is like the way you secure your house. It's not, first there is a main door, then there is another door, you put some latches, locks, all those things. So security is never a desktop thing or a laptop thing. It's a multi-layered thing, and such smart people are sitting in the audience, I don't need to tell them anything. So I believe in what I've seen the best companies do is start from fundamentals, start by hiring the right talent. And I would say that this again, because that solves 70% of the problems for the companies if you hire the right talent. So I was fortunate to work in Google, very smart people, and they were explained very nicely what needs to be done, what is expected out of them. Policies were very clear. I've seen a lot of huge organizations where the policies are not clear. People don't understand after working for 5 years also what I'm supposed to do, what I'm not supposed to do. And then there are tools which obviously Google has many tools, zero trust security, cloud identity, data loss prevention. They are all whole host of things which people can do. And I think it's a combination of policies, tools, training, right talent. I think all that works towards creating a great organization.
Thank you.
I just wanted to add.
Yeah. Closing word.
Fine. So while totally agreeing with what you just mentioned, but I think we need to differently look at an organization like Google or Microsoft and a legacy manufacturing organization with 70 years of legacy.
Very true.
Right? So that's where the reality comes into play.
Yeah.
Right? You talk of right people, right hiring. And we all know now that information security is not only technology, it starts with the people.
Correct.
Right? So when you talk of information security for an organization like Google, and when you talk of information security for a 70 years old manufacturing organization, these are two different paradigms.
Correct.
Yep.
Right? And the challenges are different, solutions are different.
Absolutely.
Right? And that's what, so when we talk of work from anywhere, when we talk of security, when we talk of data leakage, I think the contextualization of that is very important.
Right.
Which organization, what kind of users, which domain,
Absolutely.
and again, just a split, manufacturing and non-manufacturing. Right? When you get into manufacturing, the OT comes into play, which is not existent at all into a non-manufacturing entity. Right? That's a very new paradigm when you talk of today's data. We all are talking about data. But in a BFSI, in a insurance company, in a healthcare company, in a pharmaceutical company, not necessarily pharmaceutical, but all the others, banking industry, OT is non-existent. So when you talk of or bring in OT into the discussion, the paradigm totally shifts. Right? How do you, in today's world, do not have any air gapping between IT and OT, still give the data in a seamless way and secured way to your users? Right? So all these things will need a much bigger discussion. But
Yeah.
I think at the end of the day, contextualization of all these are very important.
Absolutely, can't agree more, because it's not just the industry context but also persona context. Like, is it a frontline user, is it a desk user, is it a field user? I mean, all of these also matter, and there are now enough and more native security capabilities and other tools which you can integrate with in order to enhance or probably make the controls in a way which will fit a particular user persona. And I completely agree with the industry focus, because there is difference that when we speak to other customers as well. So it's a mix of different solutions, I would say.
Thank you. We have run out of time, but it was, I think, a very interesting discussion. And I also want to thank, not only the panel, which had some great views on this topic, and I think we can continue this discussion going forward, but also for the great participation from the audience. I think we had some fantastic points which were made, some very provocative questions that were raised. So thank you so much. So thank you, Sujata, Rajneesh, Ashish, Atanu, Dinesh, and Mr. Sharma. Thank you so much for being on the panel. This is great.
Thank you. Nice talking.